Okay, let's go to the Chitas of today. Let's go to the Chumash of the day. Today is Thursday. Oh, let's see, this is yesterday's. Today is Thursday. We're holding the fifth reading in Parshas Beshalach. Holding chapter 15, verse number 27. Yavi Elima, they came to Elima. Visham, Shteim Esse, Enes, and there were 12 fountains of water, Mayim. With Shivin Tmarim, there were 70 ponds. Vayachnu Sham Alamayim, and they encamped there by the water. Rashi says, why over here we have Shteim Esse, Enes? Why were the 12 waters? Responding to the 12 tribes were prepared for them. They prepared for them 12 different canals. Shivin Tmarim, why were there 70 dates corresponding to the 70 elders? Chapter 16, verse number 1. They came when they traveled from Elim, they traveled from Elim, and the entire Jewish community came to Midbar Sin. Sinai, which was between Elim and the desert, the Sinai, between the Elim and Sinai. It was on the 15th day of the second month, the time when the kids was exactly a month later. First month was Nisan, the second month was here. Rashi says the day of encampment is stated because on that day, the cakes that they have taken out of Egypt depleted. So it took a month to finish all their bread. And then they needed man. We learned for this that they ate the remaining dough on for the remaining matzahs, 61 meals. And the man fell for them on the 16th of Iyar. So we have in this week's portion, we have the Parshas Haman, the portion which God gave the man to the Jewish people, and which was a Sunday. It was Rashi said the day of the week, as it appears in the tractate of Gemara Shabbos, which is based on a Mechilta. And the community of Israel, on the 15th month, when the food came to an end, the Jewish people complained. They complained to him in the desert. Rashi said, they complained because there was no bread. That's it. When there was no water, they complained. Now there was no bread, so they complained. The Jewish people said to Moses, if only we would have died in the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, and we ate bread to our fill. He took us out to the desert. This desert, to starve this entire congregation in starvation. Rashi says, he's saying that we would have died. But it's not even now our death. That we camp, we return, that we died. Literally, this would have been translated, who would grant us that we would die? Tiger Munkelis is leaving saying, like, if we only would have died, only would have died sitting by the pot of meat and eating bread, that would be wonderful. We're going to die in starvation. God said to Moshe, again, you see, God is not angry that they complain about food. Tell for the student, you cannot survive without food. I'm going to bring down bread from heaven. The people will go out and collect it day by day. A man on the center, so that we can test them. Will they go my commandments or not? Rashi says, think of the day in its day. What is needed for a day eating, they will gather on that day. But they will not gather what is needed tomorrow. So this, some of us stood there in the desert. Mishnah was supposed to go out for 3 days. They're going out in the desert. Even if it takes 11 days, right now they're a month later in the desert. So therefore, the Eibush responds. There has to be a solution to feeding. We're not talking about 10 people. We're talking about millions of people. The man on the center, the Eibush says, this is the test. Through giving the man, I will test whether they'll keep the commandments contingent upon it, that they will not leave any of it over, and then they will not go to Shabbos to gather it. The Eibush wanted to see if the Jewish people believed in him, because this was a big test. Because that every day you live on the food of the day, everybody wants to have a cabinet full of food, at least for a couple of days or maybe a couple of months. So we need our food. Here, the Jewish people survived food day by day. It's going to come in the 6th day. If it's not going to fall on Shabbos, so what's going to happen on the 6th day? And they will prepare what they bring. It's going to be double. So even though they'll gather for the day, they will find a blessing. It's going to be a double. For the day, for Friday, for Shabbos. Mishnah is what is accustomed to gather each day on the rest of the week. It will be double. I believe the meaning is what they will bring. And it will be double is after they bring the man. By measuring, they'll find that a double of what they gathered and measured every day. Sounds like a double miracle. First of all, they'll go out and collect man that day, and they'll find when they come home that it's double. That is the meaning. They gathered a double portion of bread. The gathering was found to be double portion of bread. That is the meaning. Therefore, on the 6th day, he gives you bread for 2 days. He gives you a blessing in the house to fill the Omer twice or for 2 days of bread. And that's why the bread on Friday night is called is also the same name, Mishnah. Double. That's why you have 2 challahs. Double. Moshe said to the children of Israel, in the evening, you shall know that the Lord has brought you out. I didn't take you out of Egypt. You're blaming me. I took you out of Egypt. Maybe she took you out of Egypt. Erev towards the evening, since you people said, Moshe and Aaron, for you have brought us out of Egypt. Like everything is on me. You shall know that it's not the ones who brought you out of Egypt. Maybe still brought you out of Egypt. But he's quelled to fight for you, and you'll see that you'll have also not only you'll have man, you'll have also meat. You worry about 2 things. Tirabasa, where's the pot of meat? Where's the beef? And you'll have bread. And then so in the evening, you'll have meat. You'll have quail. You'll come and you'll be able to eat meat. And Babaykin Yisem is great Hashem. And in the morning, you'll see the glory of God. Because God heard your complaints, Al Hashem. Well, who are we? He said, you're complaining to us. We're in the same predicament like you. It's like we have some kind of connections. We're in the exact same situation like you. So you have no food and we have no food. And Rashi says this is not stated. He said this is not stated reference to behold the glory of the Lord appears in the cloud. But it's what Moshe Rabbeinu said to him. In the evening you shall know that he's ability to grant you desire. If you have a desire for meat, God will give you meat, don't worry. And he'll give you meat. But he will not give it to you with a smiling countenance because you requested inappropriately and in a full stomach. As for bread, which you requested out of necessity, however, when it comes down in the morning, you shall see the glory. That's why the difference between meat and bread. Meat is a desire. After you hear what comes, our desires should be in the Torah. And your desires for meat. Okay, God will give you meat. But bread, he gives you because that's your need. We need to, bread is a staple of life. As we read the request necessary, when it comes down in the morning, you shall see the glory and the radiance of his God. For he will bring down it lovingly in the morning. When there is with time to prepare it, as a dew over it and dew under it. It was like lying in a box. The man was lying like in a kupsa. There was the dew that came down, and then the man came down, and dew came down again. So it was like covered in a box that was brought down in the Mechilta, in the Masechta of Yuma. As to release them, as if it would say your complaints which you have against the Lord, what importance are we? What importance are we? Kisalino aleinu, that you make everyone complain against us. Your sons, your wife, your daughters, and a mixed multitude. Perhaps I must interpret salinu in the sense of you make something. Because of this, the lamed and the dagish is salinu, and there was and it's the way it's read, the kri opposed to the ksiv. Okay, here we have a Rashi where we learned the kri and ksiv, the way it's written and the way it is read. Because the ksiv, because if it were weak, if it was not punctuated with a dagesh, isalinu, I would have interpreted as if you do something, like the people complained by yelling against Moshe, or if it's a lamed with a punctuation with a dagesh, and it's not have a yud after it, then you read salunu, which as it was written. So how is it written? It's written kisalinu. It's actually written. You see the words over here underlined. Ksiv salunu. So it's written with a chaylam. That's the way it's written. How is it read? It's read salinu with a chirik. So here you have a ksiv, the way it's written in the book, the way it's ultimately read. So it's read with a yud and a chirik. It's written with a lamed and a chaylam. There is, you see, a kri and a ksiv. So the way it's written is the concept of just a complaint. The way it's read is that you make complaint. You make others complain. You create a movement of complaints. So that's where you see that the pasuk, the way it's written is one way, that they just are complainers, and the way it's read is actually salini, that you make others complain. I would explain the meaning. You complain now, however, it means you cause others to complain. So, like the verse written in reference to the spies, that they caused the entire congregation by yalinim. So the lamed and the yud changes the meaning, the chirik in essence, changes the meaning of the word. Salunu means you complain, salinu means you make complaint. And therefore, even though it's written one way, we read it a different way to emphasize that Moshe Rabbeinu was not saying that you complain, that you make, the worst thing is that you make others complain. Moshe said, verse number 8, and the Lord gives you in the evening meat, lechel to eat. In the morning, he'll give you bread. This to be satisfied. When God heard your complaints, which you're complaining on him. Again, who are we? Your complaint is not on us. Yimal Hashem, the complaint is on God. So Rashi says again, you see the difference between bread and meat. Basa lecha. Basa, you eat meat. Well, you have a time to eat meat, you have a desire. So lecha is to eat, but not to be satiated. The Torah here teaches us rule of behavior. We should not eat meat to satisfy ourselves. What did he see? What reason do you have to bring down bread in the morning and meat in the evening? Because they requested bread inappropriately, since it is impossible for a person to get along without bread. But they requested meat, they requested bread appropriately, because they need bread. but they requested meat inappropriately because they had many animals. So what was the problem? There was animals. They had no bread. Because you have to have a wheat field to have bread. But we know the Jewish people went out with many animals. So what was the problem? Why'd you ask for meat when you have animals? And furthermore, it was possible then to get along without meat. Why do you need meat for? Therefore, he gave it to them at a time when there was a burden to prepare it. In the middle of the night, they're going to get meat. Now they got to go in you didn't have no refrigeration in the desert. So they have to go and they got to make it. Because if you're not going to make it, it's going to get ruined. So that's why he gave them meat at night. And in the morning, he gave them bread. Asheratem malinim, you're again making others malinim. The lamed and the yud makes it, and the chirik, the vowelization of this word, makes it again, you are making others who hear you complain. Verse 10, 9, and Moses told Aaron, say to the entire congregation of Israel, come before God. Hashem because God has heard your complaints. What means Kirvu, come near to where? Come to the place where the cloud descends. Aaron was speaking to the congregation by Yifnel Amidua, and they turned their eyes to the desert. And behold, glory of God was seen in Ba'anan, in the cloud. And that completes Chumash. Hey. Tomorrow is going to be, I believe, Parshas Hamon portion. We are holding the chapter 23 of Tanya. Okay, so in the previous chapters, the Alter Rebbe explains that from God's perspective, nothing is ever separate from Him. For the divine word, which creates everything, is unlike the word spoken by a human being. The latter becomes separate from the speaker, while the former God remains always within its source, which is God. It's only for the subjective viewpoint of created beings that they're considered to be separate. You can talk yourself into, you're separate. Independent entities. They'll be able to regard themselves as such because they receive the divine light force, which animates them by the way of many consuming, many contractions, as through the concealment of God divine continence, meaning the concealment of inner unlimited aspect of God's will. So the logical corollary of this idea is that anything which is in the divine will stands revealed in a complete, nullified before God and absolutely one with Him. So something that has bittul, something that has humility, becomes one with Kedusha. In this chapter, the Alter Rebbe applies this idea to Torah and mitzvahs, in which God's will is manifest. He demonstrates how one can unite with God's will and wisdom, and thereby God Himself, through the study of Torah and the observance of mitzvahs. So since we are human beings, ultimately, and human beings, especially we're not tzaddikim, so we're beinim or trying to be middlemen, which the Alter Rebbe said automatically means that you have a nefesh habahamis, you have an animal soul, you have your human nature. And your human nature is to be selfish. Is to be self. It's about self. That's human nature. Survival. The fittest, the survival. That's it. It's about self. My personal survival, whether my personal survival as a human being, whether my personal survival in the financial world, whether my personal survival in my ego, whatever. That's my nefesh habahamis. That's my animal soul that says you need to survive. So how does a person that's a Beinoni, that want to be a Beinoni, is supposed to be united with God, to have this feeling of unity? Therefore, the Alter Rebbe says we all can accomplish this, and that's through Torah mitzvahs. maybe in the world it'll be very hard for us to be able to accomplish this concept in its fullest mode, to be able to transform our daily day to work to be totally nullified to God. Like the verse says, all your actions should be for the sake of heaven. Might be very difficult, but a mitzvah, every mitzvah you could do and you should do for the sake of heaven. Because ultimately we don't understand any mitzvah. We don't, even all the rationalizations of every mitzvah, it's the will of God. So therefore, every mitzvah that we do in this world, we can do it for the sake of Kol HaNiskalel. So let's go to the Alter Rebbe. Kol HaNiskalel. In the light of all that's said and above, we can better understand and more fully, clearly elucidate what the Zohar says. Zohar says a statement. What's the statement? The Torah and God is one. Torah is the wisdom of God. The wisdom of God is one with God. The Tikkun and Pirush and in the Zohar, in the commentaries on the Zohar, explains that Ramach Pikudin, it says the Torah and God is one. And then it explains also that Ramach Pikudim, the 248 commandments, is the 240 organs of the king. That's what the Zohar says. So just as an organ in a human body is a vessel, respiratory, for the particular faculty of the soul that is vested in that organ, the eyes is a receptacle for the faculty of sight, the ear for the faculty of hearing. So too, in every commandment is a channel and a vessel for the divine will that is vested and expressed in that particular commandment. So when you say that the dust is an analogy, person should realize the dust, like his body, his limbs, are a receptacle for his soul, that his soul expresses sight in his eyes, his soul expresses hearing in his ear, so too, the Eibishter, God, is what's the receptacles of God in this world. The will of God is a mitzvah. Commandments in general represents God's will. And each individual mitzvah is an expression of a particular aspect of this will. It should be noted, however, according to this analogy, the mitzvahs are more than God's organs. An organ of the body is not one with the soul. True, when any particular soul power is vested in a corresponding organ, they function together as one. That's true. But there remain two separate entities that have been joined together. So it's really not, the eye is not the soul. The eye is just expression of the soul. But to the same token, the mitzvah are not actually, so by the same token, the mitzvah is not actually one with God. They're merely as we're joined in him. Yet the Torah, whose whole purpose is to explain the mitzvah, is entirely one with God. So that's the difference between Torah and mitzvahs. The mitzvahs, the Torah is the wisdom of God. And the mitzvahs are the will of God. So the Torah of God, that's why the Zohar expresses two different things. He says, the Torah and God is one. But the mitzvahs is an expression of God, is the limbs of God, the will of God. As quoted in the Zohar. What's the meaning? So what is the meaning of that this greater unity with God is found in Torah and the acts of Torah study that surpass even the unity of mitzvahs and their fulfillment? So yet the Torah, so this is the Alter Rebbe came, right? So, but ultimately, that the mitzvah, so the Torah is the wisdom of God, but the mitzvah is the will of God. So will is higher than wisdom. Will is much deeper, much more profound. than the concept of one's wisdom. So the Alter Rebbe explains, and the mitzvah constitutes God's innermost will and his true desire. Which closes in the upper and the lower world by giving them life. What is the meaning? All the worlds are products of God's will, his desire that they exist. And this desire is what brought them into being. Right? That's God. God had a will that there should be a world. And once God had this will, this desire, the whole world is there. However, this desire is but external manifest in his underlying internal will, the desire for mitzvahs. Why does God desire that the world exists? Because his desire is that the mitzvahs should be performed. The Eibishter wanted physical mitzvahs. And because of that, he created a world, a physical world. And this is possible only when there's something to perform them. And when there is an object in which you can form it. To this end, God created the world. So the mitzvah is the inner desire of God to the aspect of the world. This can be illustrated by an analogy of a man who travels abroad on business. Naturally, he travels because he wishes to do so. But his internal, ultimate desire in the journey is his underlying motive, lies in the profits he starts to reap. When we probe still deeper, we find that the desire for profits, itself an external expression, and even more internal desire, the desire for things which he'll be able to buy with the proceeds of his business. So you can still probe deeper and deeper to what is a true desire. So what is it? So his desire to go on this trip, is it you think he wants to go on the trip? The real desire is to make business. Why does he have a desire to make business? What is his real desire for business? Is that he should have money. So be able to have money to buy things. Why do you need to buy things? What is the real desire of all these objects? So we can keep on going to internal, deeper and deeper, and themis, inner meaning of what you're doing. Here lies a true object of his pleasure. It is desire which creates the desire for profit, which leads in turn to the desire to travel. So too in the case of the world of mitzvahs. God's external will is a desire that the world exists. God wanted a world. He had a desire. He's motivated by his desire for the true object, his true pleasure. What is the true desire of God in the world? That's the mitzvah. Thus, the mitzvah represents his innermost will. It is for this sake that God gives life to the entire world. Because the entire world exists. V'shifam tali, all the life, the very life, and the sustenance of all the world is all dependent. The Maisa mitzvahs, on the performance of mitzvahs by human beings in this world. So the performance of mitzvahs draw down godly life and sustenance to all the world. So it follows that the performance of and the fulfillment of a mitzvah is the innermost garment for the innermost aspect with primis ratzon. So in general, we say, Nesava Kodesh Baruch Hu, God wanted this will. He had a ratzon to this will. What is it? That's ratzon, that's a will. What is the inner ratzon? What is the innermost ratzon? Is to have a world that will be a world that will follow the commandments. And that's the innermost ratzon of God's will. The Remai says that, because due to this performance of this mitzvah, the light and the light of the worlds issue forth a divine will to be clothed in them. Meaning, since God's desire for the world only as a vehicle for the performance of mitzvahs as explained above, it is only for this reason. There's no other reason for the worlds if not for Torah mitzvahs. There's no for mitzvahs. There's no purpose in this. That's why the mitzvahs in the Zohar are called figuratively as organs of the king. Just like the human body. What is the human body? The human body might think it needs to eat, it needs to, but really the human body is that it fits the soul, that the soul lives in it. Thus, like the organs of a human body are garments for its soul. That's really what you have a body. So your soul, Baruch Hashem, that my soul can come into it. And therefore the body is completely surrendered to it. That's the truth. Ultimately, the body knows without the soul, it has no existence. So really the purpose of this body is the soul. And how do we see that? And that's why the second a person wants to move his hand and his foot, they automatically obey immediately. You don't got to think about it. You don't have a great contemplation and meditation to move your foot and your hand, because your body moves to the will of the soul. Take him out, it moves. Take him out automatically. It moves to the will of the soul. You don't have to command it, and you have to make instructions. That's when a person is God forbid, when you have to start training the body again to listen to the soul. Sometimes God forbid, a person that's sick. God forbid, suddenly he cannot move his hand. He wants to move his hand, he can't move his hand, because there's a breakage in between that. There's a link, there's a missing link. But in general, a healthy body, Baruch Hashem, moves. The second I want to move, I move. Without any delay. But mamish, it's like the very instant. That it enters his mind, his will, his will to move his hand. Who's that? So the response of his organs are automatic. One needs to consciously occupy himself by activating his hand. And as to the phrase, without any command or instruction, when one must exert effort in activating his faculties, when one dislikes a particular task, but forces himself to do so on the strength of logic, this effort is spoken as an internal command from one's faculty to another. However, when one's will is activated, the organs of his body, there's no such command involved. That's the difference between intellect and will. Intellect means when I don't want to do something, I don't want to walk to this place, and now I have to force myself to walk to this place intellectually. But if I want to walk to someplace, I walk. I don't even have to argue with myself to go someplace. Just that the organs of the body, in a healthy body, are completely united with one soul, and it's surrendered to it. That's why the expression says, with the will of man, nothing stands before the will of man. Because when somebody has a will to do something, nothing can stop for it from, because it's automatic. Everything works. Everything rolls. So too, the mitzvah, that's why they're giving the example. The mitzvah that we do, so too is a life force animating of the performance of fulfillment of commandment completely surrender to the divine will, which is closed therein. It becomes a relation to the divine will, like a body to the soul. So therefore, that's what we say the bracha. Every mitzvah has a bracha. This is a command by God. This is the will of God that I'm putting on tefillin. This is the will of God that I'm lighting my Shabbos candle. This is the will of God that I'm making kid. I'm drinking this wine for 5 nights. This is the will of God, etc. It's the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is His mitzvah. This is His expression. If that's the will of God, ultimately this will of God comes into an outer body, an outer expression, which is my body. I do the mitzvah. Likewise, the external garment of the divine soul, of the person fulfilling and practicing the commandment, I'm the one who's doing the commandment. The will of God comes into the mitzvah. Tefillin is the will of God. Now I put the tefillin on my hand, and I put it on my head. So I'm using my body for the tefillin. It's faculty of action, which is external compared to the faculty of speech and thought, since it functions outside oneself. So I put the tefillin on my hand. So if the mitzvah is bottled to God, if the mitzvah is nullified to God, it's the organ of God. So the tefillin, for example, that I put on today in the morning, is totally nullified to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the will of God. Now my hand becomes nullified to that tefillin. I put that tefillin on my hand. I did the mitzvah with my hand. I put the tefillin on my head. I did the mitzvah with my physical body. Clothes itself in the vitality of the performance of the mitzvah. Now my hand became bottled to the tefillin, became nullified to the tefillin, that is nullified to God. And I did it because it's the mitzvah. But nasigam go from the shama. So now my body, my physical hand, became nullified to the mitzvah, which is nullified to God, and became just like the mitzvah, the tefillin is the limb of God. My hand became the limb of God. Like the body is so related to divine will, and is completely surrendered to divine will. So the soul powers of action becomes united with the divine will in the same way as one body is united with the soul. My body, by me putting on tefillin, because I know it's a mitzvah, and I know it's the will of God, and the will of God needs my hand, because you cannot put tefillin if you don't have a hand. Chas v'shalom. So this now, Baruch Hashem, I have a hand. I used my hand today in the morning for tefillin. My hand became now bottled to the mitzvah. Okay. So now this way, the organs of a human body, which performs the mitzvah, meaning those organs in which the divine soul faculty of action is closed during the performance and fulfillment of the mitzvah. In my hands and my head became a vehicle for God's will. Literally, for God's will. Like the hand, when I give charity to the poor man, my hand now became a vehicle for this mitzvah. Or any other mitzvah, which I do with my hand. I walk to show. Any mitzvah. I learn Torah. My head now becomes a vehicle for God's wisdom. If I walk with my feet for a mitzvah, so to my mouth, my mouth and tongue. Right now, we're learning Torah. I'm talking words of Torah. That my mouth has now become a vehicle for this Torah. I'm moyach, and my brain. I'm a hara b'divid. And my brain, I use my physical brain to become a vehicle for the wisdom of Torah. The Yirah Shamayim, we do say Shabbat, the fear of God and the greatness of God. I push it, transform my physical reality into a spiritual reality. So when the organs occupy the mitzvah, they are totally surrendered, like a chariot. The divine will flows in the mitzvah. Note, the physical organs become merely a chariot for divine will. It does not become surrendered and unified with divine will. Same extent as the divine faculty of the soul of action, whose unity with the Alter Rebbe is being compared to the unity of body and soul. The unity of the body and soul surpasses that of a chariot with its rider. Body and soul, although originally two separate, this two separate entities, one physical and the other spiritual, become one entity when united. No part of the body is devoid of the soul. Conversely, the soul completely adapts itself to the body, becoming transformed into a corporal life force. Divine soul faculty of action, being a godly power, can achieve this level of unity with God when it is employed in the performance of a mitzvah. Organs of the body, however, on the other hand, although they are too involved in fulfillment of mitzvah, can reach no higher than the level illustrated in the analogy of a chariot. A chariot having no will of its own, so indeed completely subservient to its rider, yet not united with him. So that's why the concept of a chariot, the Zohar talks like the patriarchs with chariots. So the chariot is a concept of subservient. The chariot doesn't become the rider. The chariot is subservient to the rider. The soul becomes part of the body. The Eibishter becomes part of the mitzvah. God and the mitzvah become one. But God and the body becomes like a chariot to its rider. Interesting expression. This is what the sages said. The parrots are truly a divine chariot. All the organs, was detached from the mundane matters. And they served as a vehicle for nothing but the divine will. The reason why the sages designated specifically the patriarchs as God's chariot, although every Jew's body becomes a chariot when he performs a mitzvah, is that the patriarch's submission to the divine will was unique in its power, its scope, and its consistency. All their organs were totally surrendered to the divine will throughout their lives. Whereas other Jews only use those organs which perform a mitzvah are a chariot. And then only during the act. But the office was 24/7. They were given over 24/7. In fact, the same organ, which today serves as a chariot to God, might conceivably serve the opposite purpose tomorrow or 10 minutes later. So I use my hand for a chariot for God, putting on tefillin, and then later I can use it for things that are not correct, not the right things to do. But the Aves were called chariots because they were consistently chariots. So it's a beautiful concept. Alter Rebbe completes the Tanya of today. Alter Rebbe is explaining to us the concept of power of Torah mitzvahs. And the Torah is the will of God. The Torah is the wisdom of God. The mitzvah is the will of God. And by me doing the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when I do a mitzvah, I in essence become a chariot to God's will. The mitzvah itself, the tefillin, is a davar shebekdusha. It's totally surrendered. It lost its identity. It's totally surrendered to God. And me, who doesn't, also surrenders in a way. As a chariot, I surrender myself for the moment. Over the time that I'm doing the mitzvah, I surrender my physical reality to the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And you should realize, by surrendering myself, if I surrender myself to the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the will of God, At that time, when I surrender myself, I become a chariot and recover a vehicle for God's will to come down into this world. And without me surrendering myself, then the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the will of God, the desire of God, cannot come down to this world, only through my performance of this. As you can imagine, the Alter Rebbe is going to continue. We just touched a little bit on it today. We'll continue Mitzvah tomorrow, the Chitas, as we continue the Chitas of the day. Today is the 11th day of the month, which is chapter 60 to chapter 65. That we'll do the Chitas of the day by doing those 6 chapters. I want to make 2 important announcements. First of all, in Midshem at 10 o'clock, we have a sit of the Rebbe here at Chabad at 10 a.m., the portion of the week. And in Midshem at 7 p.m. at Chabad, we're having a Farbrengen of a guest rabbi is coming in. He's coming in for tonight and for Shabbos also. So he's going to, Rabbi Yossi Lu, he's going to Farbrengen with us for 7 p.m. Men and women and children all are invited. We're going to have some also, with it, we'll have some nice Hasidic music and Hasidic singing in honor of Yud Shvat. Everybody's invited tonight at 7 p.m. It's open to the public, and everybody's welcome to come. Hopefully, we'll see you there tonight from Brain tonight at Chabad. In Midshem, as I said, this rabbi is staying for Shabbos, so we're gonna have a meal on Friday night, and hopefully, you'll also participate that on Friday night and book, call up to Chabad 487-2934 and book to come on Friday night. And this rabbi will continue on Shabbos morning to bring with us after by the Kiddush on Shabbos morning. So we're getting ready for a wonderful, wonderful, inspirational weekend, which will start in Mitzvah tonight at 7 p.m. Wish you all a good day and a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful